We're back
We're back
on a Monday
on a Monday.
to talk about rule number 3 from the 12 Rules for Life
Jordan Peterson.
by Jordan Peterson. And rule number 3 is make friends with people who want the best for you.
That's correct.
Straightforward and simple. Make friends with people who want the best for you. This was a difficult thing for me in high school.
In high school?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, at that time, I guess you can say somewhat immaturity, I didn't realize that, um, I guess how important this is because I thought more so the friends are the people that I'm having a good time with, that I have maybe some history with, connection with, but not necessarily who want the best for me. I didn't used to think like that.
Okay.
So started hanging around in high school and then after high school going out with friends that didn't necessarily want the best for me, and I started to see a correlation every time I would hang out with specific people, which I called friends. It led to problems, trouble. Um, but I don't know if this is something that with age becomes easier to do. Maybe you could talk on that. But for me, it's been a challenge. And I think now that where I am in life, I it's a little bit easier to pinpoint maybe the people that don't want the best for me, and so I'll tend to stay away from those people. How about you?
Well, my question would be how many kids in high school, if we can call them kids, because you're relatively very young. So, how many high school people, boys and girls, know or this law or think
Rule.
about
This rule.
this rule, excuse me, or think about hanging out with people, that want the best for them. I don't know that there would be that many. I know I wasn't thinking about that when I was in high school either.
Yeah.
So, does it come with age? I would tend to think that it comes with age to some people. I would say a great percentage of people. But there's also, the 35-year-old man who is a 17-year-old kid that hasn't grown up.
At
Okay.
heart. Yeah.
Yeah, at heart.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there that I don't think are aware that the, this is very common to hear today, but not when I was growing up, or even getting started in business. Nobody ever told me, at least, the five friends that you keep or the five people you hang with, most likely you're going to end up like them. So, for example, if you end up with surgeons, you're going to potentially be a surgeon. If you hang out with five attorneys, potentially you'll be an attorney. If you hang out with five hippies, well, then potentially you might be a hippie.
Well, there's a
No
saying.
negative connotation attached, but that's, what they say nowadays, and it's very
No,
true.
but that's been around forever.
Well,
Even
nobody
the
told me.
saying in Spanish, "Dime con quién andas, te diré quién eres." Tell me
Okay,
who you hang around, and I'll tell you who you will be, who
that's
you
true.
are.
And I did know that.
So I think
That
it's
was
just
repeated heavily at my house
yeah. No, I
growing
think
up.
it's something. Tell you are who you hang around. All these sayings, but whether you actually live by them, sometimes I think we have to make the mistake ourselves, learn from it. If you can, I take your parents' guidance or somebody a good influence, and actually try to be more selective with your friends earlier on in life. I think that will benefit you greatly. But initially, a lot of times, and Jordan Peterson talks about it. He says a lot of times the people we have a loyalty to certain people because we grew up with them or we share things in common. We went through certain hardships together, so we feel like, oh, I'm their friend because of loyalty. That's what Jordan Peterson talks about.
Right. And he says he makes he delineates something in this chapter, that something with regard to stupidity. Loyalty does not equate stupidity or something like that, where
Okay.
he's saying, don't be stupid, you know. Um, he says, friendship is a two-way street. You need to be a friend and have a friend. But if that's not the case, don't feel that you're breaking the loyalty there by unbefriending that person. So it's very interesting the way he puts it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. He talks about people that are nihilistic, which I didn't know what that meant. You
okay.
don't care for anything. There's no uh care about anything, and that he had a friend that had this mentality.
He didn't care about anything.
He didn't care about anything. Yeah. Um but
Well, it doesn't take much to realize you hang around with people like that, you're not going to go anywhere.
well, when you're in that environment,
Right.
that's why I think there's a lot of positive to this rule.
Yes.
Make friends with people who want the best for you, because um he's talking about, because a lot of times friends enter our lives because of a coincidence. We happen to have a similar last name, so we were friends in line. We happen to have the same school, upbringing, neighborhood. It's not people that we specifically chose to befriend. And so I think that that's why this is very important, because um, later on in life, you could be more selective with your friends, I feel. But if this message could get to a younger person earlier on, I think it could save you a lot of grief.
It does, but he also says that he says it's much easier to associate with people that are bad. He says that
Yeah.
because he says, look, going down is easy. The way up is difficult for everybody.
Yeah.
So he says, look, associating with people that are not so good is a very easy thing to do. And that was very interesting to me. The other thing that he mentions is that he gives the example of the workplace
Yes.
where we got a manager that's managing different teams of people working in different sections. And then you got this guy that is not doing good. He doesn't show up on time, or he's not doing his work properly. He's not reliable. And then the manager takes this gentleman and puts him in his best performing team so that the good that that team has can rub off on this guy. And according to Jordan Peterson, it has the exact opposite effect.
Yeah.
This person that is being put in this group drags the entire group down.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind it is, okay, well, he's not carrying his weight. Why am I breaking my brains and my body to do this while he's not carrying his weight, but yet he's still getting paid a salary like I am? So he's dragging everything down. So it's easier to bring the entire group down as opposed to bring the entire
Well,
group
it
up.
it reminds me of that you had a saying that you said about, you have uh, a palace, right? And then you could put a clown in a palace,
Be careful who you invite to your home,
right?
because if you let a clown into the palace, okay, the clown does not turn into a king. He turns everybody into a clown and it destroys the
No, the
palace.
the palace becomes a circus. That's the
Exactly.
way I remember.
Exactly.
So yeah, you have to be, and we've seen it because we've had teams, we've worked with, have different employees and different,
Exactly.
and we've seen where I remember one person specifically was a very negative person,
Uh-huh.
and I remember how she affected the people around her. If she was in a bad mood, everybody was a little bit careful with her. She would snap at people, and I remember going up to you because this was an employee of yours and
Mm-hmm.
and mom's at the time,
Uh-huh.
and I remember asking you guys fire her, get rid of her, because I just saw how it was affecting other people. And I've always, the way that I looked at it was I would just stay away, but other people were getting pulled into her stuff. She was very problematic.
Very problematic.
You
And
ended up eventually, I believe, letting her go,
yes,
but it took a long time.
it took a long time because it's not easy to fire people.
No.
It's easy to fire people in the sense of you use your
Human resource.
yeah, you can go up to a person and say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry, it's not working. You're gone." The emotional aspect of it is
Yeah.
what affects, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't, because it's the livelihood of your business. And you're right, it affects everybody,
Yeah.
and then it affects production, whether it is you're selling, manufacturing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the good advice to give out there is, if you have somebody that's a bad apple, and you know it's a bad apple, and you know that it's affecting your business, get rid of that person quickly, because the livelihood of your business depends on it. Your mother and I were very slow to fire.
Yeah.
That is a mistake we've made in the past.
Well, it's also easy for me to say, but for me, it was very clear that this was a problem. And I've heard it said, like, think of it as a cancer.
Yeah,
You got to
correct.
remove that cancer as fast as possible before it spreads.
And you're right.
And it does spread. And so the negativity can spread potentially even faster than the positivity. And that's what Jordan Peterson's saying, when it's easier to go down than up.
That's right. The other thing that I found very interesting is that he says, look, it's not that I don't believe in redemption. I believe that people can, return from wherever they've fallen.
Right.
Okay. But he says, but look, it's very important to figure out why that person is in that trouble that they're in. Okay.
Yeah, I wrote that down because I thought that was a very powerful message too.
Super
He
powerful.
says, before, this is quote from the book, rule number 3. Before you help someone, you should find out why that person is in trouble instead of assuming
Instead of assuming what?
that it was not their doing,
Right. Instead of
that they're a
assuming
victim.
that they are a victim. Because we're seeing our first impressions, and I'm guilty of it, is I see someone in trouble and I want to help that person, right? I'm not questioning whether they got there by their own means or they're a victim of someone taking advantage of them or not. But Jordan Peterson says, look, you need to figure out why that person is there before you help them,
Yeah,
because that person can, you're trying to help somebody, and that can draw you into a situation where they take advantage of you.
right.
Is that person luring you into? And that's why he makes the distinction. Listen, I'm not saying that there's no redemption, okay? But I wrote a couple of things on it. He says, look, it's easier to lift a man or a woman from a ditch than to lift a man of or a woman from a deep chasm. He made that distinction in the book, and I wrote it because he says, look, it's easier to lift them from a shallow ditch
Mm-hmm.
than lifting them from a deep, deep hole or deep chasm that they've fallen into. That's very difficult. Maybe that should be left to the professionals. I never looked at it that way, Mike.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never
A
looked at it.
chasm being
Oh,
like a deep opening in the earth's surface, an
correct.
abyss, a bottomless gulf, a pit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's,
Wow.
and
Powerful.
well, how do you do that with, for example, a family member?
Yeah.
Let's say a son or a daughter that's fallen. Okay.
Yeah.
I would tend to think that those parents will do anything
Yeah.
and everything to try to help that son or daughter.
Well, you got to be careful also with your definition of help, because you can become an enabler to a certain extent,
Right.
you know, of the problem that they're having.
He talks about that too.
He does. So, I mean, have you in your life seen someone in this situation where they tried to help this person. Somebody tried to help this person and they got pulled down instead of getting them out of the pit, let's say. They
Well,
got pulled down into an abyss.
I have seen it,
How
and
how how do you remember, like,
yeah, with alcoholism.
okay.
Uh, some coworker that I knew from sales, uh, one of his sons was involved with alcoholism, and he tried everything he could, and it didn't work, unfortunately.
Mm,
I don't know how it ended, but I know that um, the young man left the house because they couldn't put up with all the rules and restrictions that were placed upon him to try to. So it's very sad. I don't know where
yeah.
he ended up. I don't know how it ended, but it doesn't bode well from where I left it. And then life went on, and I went another way. He went another way, and so
It's interesting because you brought up in immediately family
yeah.
when Jordan Peterson's talking about friends, make friends with people who want the best for you. But what about family?
Well, you the families that well,
What do you do when
yeah.
family is does not want the best for you? What do you do?
Well, we had a situation in our family where someone very, very close to us, I thought was very, very toxic. And for good or for bad, I made it very clear that I wanted nothing to do with that person. And we cut ties with that person 40 years ago and never resumed the ties again.
So even a family member, you're willing to do that. So that's your answer.
Well, it was on my wife's family side. It wasn't on my side of the family.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that made it easier or not. It was a very difficult situation. And, as you get older, you try to judge people less, but it was definitely a person that made our lives miserable. And it was an extremely difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is not easy at
No.
all by any means.
No.
And I had second thoughts and thirds and fourths and fifths throughout the years. Who am I to bring forth a decision like this? So it shakes you to your core.
Yeah. But you were trying to make the best decision for yourself and your family moving forward.
I was.
Yeah.
And even to today, it affects me,
Yeah.
because we never resumed. We've seen this person once or twice over the three or four times in the course of 40 years.
Yeah.
It's 40 years now, 39 years. And we cut ties with that particular person, and it was a very close family member.
Yeah. So, that's I mean, to me, that's an example. Like, if there's a friend in our lives that doesn't want the best for us, is the toxic person, we should cut them.
Well, for me, friends is easy because I have grown as I've gotten older, my group of friends have diminished.
Yeah. I was saying that too the other
Yeah,
day.
I don't have as many friends as I
Yeah.
did when I was young, like you.
I think also you could
I
um
have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of business people that I know that have, I hold a great deal of respect for them,
yeah,
and the respect is mutual.
that's what I was gonna say. We use the word friends loosely, some of us, early on in life, I think.
I think so. You know who made that very clear to me?
Hmm.
My daughter. She, because I always used to say many years ago, I have this friend, this and that. And when she got involved in business, one time she turned to me and she says, Dad, you know what? You think everybody's your friend. You say, oh, my friend is, they're not friends, Dad. They're acquaintances.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was shocked when she said that. And she was right on the money, 100%.
This goes, I think, hand in hand also with why there are some people that we meet, because we're constantly meeting new people for,
Absolutely.
that's in business and other
Yes.
areas. And that's why maybe some people have this wall up. They're very careful with like who they surround themselves with. They don't just want to
Absolutely.
bring anybody in.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. And
sometimes I've taken it maybe a little personal, like, oh, this person, they don't get back, they don't reach out, they don't.
that's very normal. And I used to do that too.
Yeah.
and then you grow out of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing personal. And if you do the four, what is it, the four agreements?
The four
One
agreements.
of the agreements is don't take things personal. The
Correct.
book is not there, but we have a bunch
Yeah.
of books that, but so yeah, don't take things personal. And if you do, you lose. But
Yeah.
as you get older, you grow out of it. And then as you get older, all the meeting we were having this morning with Matt,
Yeah.
my ideas on certain on issues have changed over the years.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that Jordan Peterson mentions with regards to this thing. So remember, it's easier to lift someone from a ditch than from a chasm. And then he says, look, you should um, not necessarily adhere to,
Mm-hmm.
but you should listen a little bit to Carl Rogers because he says if a person does not want to improve, all the help that you get, that person, him or her, whatever, will be futile, useless. That person will not improve.
Wow.
There's got to be an internal reflection where that person says, I've hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And rock bottom is not the same for everybody. For one person, rock bottom may be here, and rock bottom for another person may be here, but they have hit rock bottom themselves in their mind. And they've made the determination, I cannot go on like this. If I continue to go like this, my life is going to end and I will turn up to nothing.
They
And
want to make a change of some sort.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the person that comes to mind to me is Grant Cardone, because apparently he went through a lot during his younger years. He became a drug addict and so forth. He was in rehab and stuff like that. He's definitely turned himself around.
Yeah.
And I don't mean it because of the money, even though having the money has to do with him
The growth that he made it
living a better
first.
life.
Yeah.
And he's providing a very good life for his wife and his daughters,
Yeah.
you know? But having the internal strength to turn around from that.
There were a couple powerful messages in this rule. Um, someone who needs help, uh, eh, determining somebody who needs help and someone who is exploiting a willing helper.
Exactly.
Jesus. So this person, let's say I see you hurt, you're on the ground, you need help. And then there's the person that is constantly on the ground and is just exploiting the person that comes to them. They never want to get up, really. And
Right.
that's what you're talking about.
Right.
The person needs to themselves want to get up.
Right.
So that's very important because you could have a really good heart and want to help that person, and they don't themselves want the help.
Well, I'm here to
How
tell
do
you
you
that's,
determine?
well,
He says it's extremely difficult. Actually,
oh,
Jordan Peterson says that.
because before we cut ties with this family member, everybody in the family tried to help.
Mm,
And it just didn't happen.
yeah,
And at some point, I said, this is enough. Because I saw this particular person abusing other family members, taking advantage of other family members.
yeah,
And I wasn't going to about to let this person do that to us.
yeah,
And so it is so difficult. You have guilt feelings. You wonder if you made the right decision. It's extremely difficult. I found a quote on stupidity that I want to clear it up for the viewers. He says, um, loyalty is not identical to stupidity.
yeah,
Okay? Loyalty is not identical to stupidity. I had to read that several times in order to try to grasp. What do you
yeah.
think that means?
Well, to me, that means uh, you're gonna have this friend around just because you want to be loyal to him, but this friend is a bad influence, doesn't want the best thing for you, leads to just trouble. So now that's now stupidity because you haven't cut that person out of your life. That's the way that I take it. But no, it's very powerful.
That's so I wrote it down because I thought it was powerful. And so the other thing he said, which I didn't write down, but you brought it to memory, he said, um, look, if you have a friendship that is not good and you know it's not good, and you hang around still with them for loyalty, but it's not a good thing, would you recommend that friend to your sister, to your brother, to your nephew, to your niece?
For them to have that friendship.
Right. No, you wouldn't recommend it. So why do you keep that friend around
Yeah.
if you know that it's not good for you?
I
A
got
lot of
it.
it is common sense, but see, when you're in the heat of the moment, do you see it?
No, but when he puts it that way and he says, "Would you recommend your son, your daughter, your sibling to have that same friendship?" That's different, and that goes actually to rule number 2, which is treat yourself as you were responsible for treating others, right?
Yeah,
Treat yourself as if you were responsible for treating others,
for the benefit and the health of others. Yeah,
right?
for treat.
So what it's kind of goes hand in hand with that. Like, okay, I'm willing to have this bad friendship that I know is problematic, but am I willing to have my sister or my brother have this friendship? No, I wouldn't wish that on them. Then why do you have it? See, because you're willing to undergo maybe things that you wouldn't want on other people, and I think that's powerful when he puts it in that perspective of would you want your sibling to. And as I'm going through this rule in preparation for today, I'm thinking to myself because I recently had a gathering uh for my, a gathering of friends and family,
Uh-huh.
and I had to choose specific people to invite to this,
Uh-huh.
and my list of friends becomes, it seems like it's smaller and smaller and smaller, and as I'm going through this rule, I'm thinking, do I want to invite this person?
Well, I have a question for you. Let me put you on the spot here
Okay.
because that's the beauty of our podcast, right?
Yeah.
This is not rehearsed, and we do research independent of each other.
Independent research.
Yeah, he does his stuff, I do my stuff, then we sit down and we talk about it, and
Yeah.
if it, God willing, it comes out good. Is yours okay? You're saying your circle of friends is becoming smaller.
Mhm.
So are you becoming antisocial?
My
Let,
priorities have changed.
okay, but let's just say that you're not. Let's try to give you the benefit of the doubt and say you're not becoming antisocial.
Okay.
So is your circle of friends becoming smaller and smaller because you're referring to the friends that came with you from high school and followed you and stuff like that? Or do you have newer friends in that circle that just were not able to make it to that party on that day? Go ahead.
Oh, well, no, it's not just the people that weren't able to make it to that party. That's part of it. But no, the people, I'm just saying the people that I have in my life in the small circle, let's say, that I would call friends, like grandpa would say, your dad, um, true friends you can count in one hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? Five.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think that some of those are no longer there. There are some new ones, but you know, it's
But yet,
hard.
even with the new ones, your circle
It's
is
still
becoming
smaller.
smaller
Yeah,
and
yeah.
smaller.
It's still smaller.
Yeah. Well, Jordan Peterson might argue that those friends that have gone by the wayside were not friends.
Yes, and you know what? The other side is that a part of me is like, oh, I want to be cool with people and stuff. But the other side is that may not be a bad thing that that group is smaller and smaller. I'm kind of putting a negative connotation to it, but it may not be bad. Maybe the people that you have a stronger relationship with. I do feel that the people that I do have in my life, I have a stronger connection with, and we don't see each other all the time. We don't necessarily talk all the time, but we are intentional about staying in touch. And you even said it to a good buddy of mine, or at the party, you said, you know, you've over the years you've been still a part of Mike's life, and
You've hung around.
hung around, and I feel the same. And there's a friendship, true friendship, and so um, it's not necessarily bad, but if you would have told me 5 years ago, 8 years ago, that I would have this small group of actual friends, I would have not believed it because I had back then a lot of people I hung around with.
But Manny stuck around,
My buddy stick
and
around.
he you can
Yeah.
see the love. He
Yeah.
comes
He's a
in, he
good guy.
feels, you
Yeah.
know, you can see the love. It's good.
Here's an interesting quote. The person who tries to rescue someone is often fueled by vanity and narcissism.
Wow.
Now, Jordan Peterson makes it a point to say, I'm not trying to like stop people from wanting to help others.
Right.
So he says something along those lines,
Yeah.
but just know that sometimes when you're that person that's always trying to help and rescue somebody, what is fueling that?
And what does he say it is?
He says it's often fueled by vanity and narcissism.
Wow.
You're doing it for yourself because you're so great. You're helping everybody. I do think there are some people that do it truly, genuinely from their heart. Those people don't need to put it on social media. They
Right.
don't need to put it
They
anywhere.
don't need to get credit for it.
And
They
then you
just
got
do
the other
it.
people that they need to let the world know that they go here and give to this people in this country and this, and they are great people. And so, anyways, I'm not judging it. I just thought that was interesting. Again, I think that's why this book is controversial because in every chapter he says something controversial.
Yeah,
Because if
he's
you're
going out on a limb.
yeah, when you say something like that and you're saying that you're helping people for because you're a narcissist and for
Because of
your
your vanity.
vanity, yeah. So I thought that was really uh interesting. And then, the message overall here I think is really good. I think that in life and in business, we have to be really choosy with who we surround ourselves with. We try to align ourselves with positive people who are creating something good for society, for the world, and are giving value. That's what we believe in. And those are the people we try to align ourselves with. And when it's not just friends, personal, but it's also business people. And if there's somebody in business that we think does things shady or whatever, we stay away,
Right.
you know?
Well, quoting Robert Greene now,
Yeah.
not Jordan Peterson, Robert Greene is a consultant for Fortune 500 companies. And he does say that. He
Yeah.
says, you'd be surprised how many um, business people that are extremely successful in their line of work make the worst decisions about bringing on a manager or the worst decision about bringing in
To the
a
board.
supervisor or a board member that
Yeah.
destroys the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Robert Greene is a consultant to these companies and he's sharing that. And I firmly believe that he's right on the money
Yeah.
because you may not be all that good at judging someone that you bring in to your board of directors or something of that nature.
Uh-huh.
It's very interesting. You know, the other thing that he mentioned was that friendship is a reciprocal relationship. I
Wow.
like that very much because I have a lot of guilt when I break up a friendship, or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you
An
know,
acquaintance.
according to my daughter, an acquaintance. So so I have a lot of guilt when something like that happens. But if you kind of hack your brain and you say, well, look, this is supposed to be a reciprocal relationship. I am bringing something positive and you bringing something positive, then the friendship continues to grow and prosper like a plant or
Yeah.
a flower
Yeah.
that receives good water and soil and so forth. But if the friendship is not reciprocal, then you cut that
Yeah.
connection. And that's where he says, I think that's a measuring rod for someone that has, let's say, a friendship. And he says, oh, if you know that it's a bad friendship, would you recommend that to your brother, your niece, your wife, your husband, whatever? And the answer is no.
Yeah. That's a good way to measure.
It's a good, if it's not a reciprocal, he says, friendship is a reciprocal relationship. If you're not in and that's why he also says, loyalty is not identical to stupidity.
Well, you've said that about a reciprocal relationship in different words. You've said if it's only one way, eventually you get tired. You've said that many times.
Yeah.
because you've brought up many people in our lives. I remember saying, why don't we see this person anymore? Why don't we hang around with them? They were quote unquote friends, acquaintances.
Yeah.
We would celebrate certain, what would you call them? Certain
Fourth of July
holidays together.
holidays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden they're gone after many years. And what happened there? And then you would say, well, after a while, you get tired. When you're the only one calling to say hello, when you're the only one showing up,
That's right.
when you're the only one being intentional to stay in touch,
That's right.
you get tired. And now I do see that. Now I sometimes I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt and think, well, um, maybe they're going through something in life and this and that, and but the reality of it is that we make time for the things that are important to us.
That is correct.
And if you put yourself from that perspective, if this person values your relationship, they're going to make time to even give you a 60-second call. Now you could say, well, what if they're not in the right frame of mind? They're going through a really tough time. They lost a family. Okay. But I'm a believer that we make time for the people, the things that are important to us. And I also am a believer that people show their true colors when they're going through something difficult. And a lot of times, Robert Greene says, when somebody encounters a stressful or difficult uh, situation and they react a certain way, they snap at you or something, say something really mean, and then when they come back to their senses, that wasn't me. I'm sorry I reacted that way. They showed you who they really
They
were.
who they really are. I have people right now, they're acquaintances, you know? They only call me when they need me.
Yeah,
And I know it. I see the phone and I see that it's that person calling me, and I know that that person is calling me because they need something from me.
it's all one way.
It's all one way.
Me, me,
And there
me.
are people out there too. And we do business with those people also because,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, business
they're
is a
not
different.
bad people, you know, it's just that you're not part of their group. And again, if you take things personal, you lose.
Business, I look at it a little different.
Yeah,
However, eventually, if you become successful enough, you can choose your client. I believe that.
of
You
course.
can choose who you do business with. I don't want to do business with them anymore.
Right.
But when it comes to friendship,
Well, we have done that.
yeah, there's people that, like you said,
We won't do business with them.
it's
It's
all
trouble.
one way.
No,
It's all
and
one
it's
way.
trouble.
Yeah, I think, like you said, even business should be reciprocal. There's got to be a dance.
Hmm.
It's a give and take when take dance lessons or whatever. Somebody leads, the other person follows. You have to gauge the way you move based on the other person. And it's not all just what can I take from this, but some people go into business relationships or even friendships that way. But that won't last, I don't think.
You know, it's funny because you remind me, I've been listening to this kid, Preciado, you know, lately.
Hmm.
As of late, I've come to listen to him a little bit. And he mentions that, he doesn't spend any time with anyone that doesn't bring something of value to
Yeah.
the table.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't. He says, I don't have enough.
Sounds harsh.
It does. It
But
does. And he also says that he hasn't met with his uncles for a barbecue in like 5 years or something like that
yeah.
because they just, I guess, not business minded. They're interested in the chisme, in the gossip. That's what he said. It's very interesting. Um, it's tough
Yeah.
because when it comes to family, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. Not. I don't know that when it's difficult.
It's a difficult thing.
It's a difficult thing because you definitely don't want somebody that's toxic.
No.
There, you're gonna have to do something because you have children, you have grandkids, you have this, and it affects. So you need to figure out what are you gonna do, and quickly.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to throw in?
No, um,
I think it's a powerful rule, and I think that one of the takeaways that I get from it, and maybe everyone wants to practice this exercise, is think what friendships or even family, but what friendships do I have in my life right now that I wouldn't want my brother, sister, mom, or dad to have? And I think if we look at it like that, for me, that's one of the biggest takeaways. And it's actually making me reflect right now on the people in my life and who do I want to continue to have.
Well, these books
Yeah,
change us.
yeah,
He said, when you dare to aspire upwards, you show yourself and others the inadequacy of your present.
yes.
Okay, so I thought that was powerful. Um, Another thing that he reassures you, for example, another thing he said is use your judgment and protect yourself from people that are, you know, not the best for you.
Yeah,
Use your judgment and protect yourself from people that are not the best for you. So and he also said it's not easy to surround yourself with good people. They're hard to find. So, I think that, like you just said, this takeaway is right on the
it's a
money.
great measuring stick.
It's a great, yeah, and this is a constant search
Yes.
and growth and development and, you know, doing the best you can with what you got.
Cool.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying these rules.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.